Hi, everyone. We're so excited to have Rhonnie here, who is an expert tarot reader, an astrologer, and just an amazing human. I know we'll probably hi, Rhonnie. We'll probably give a few more minutes for people to just trickle in and just make sure everyone is here. And what we're going to be talking about today is the bridge between tarot and astrology. And it's just such an amazing time to be doing this during the full moon in Libra, because Libra is all about balance, right? And Libra acts as such an incredible bridge between anything, right? Two sides of anything. And I think that it's a really amazing way for us to bridge together these two arts, and really see the parallels between them and see how they're so intimately and beautifully connected. Rhonnie has put together such a gorgeous presentation. And as an astrologer myself, who doesn't know much about tarot, I'm so excited to see how I can start integrating tarot into my astrology practice and just kind of using my astrology knowledge to understand tarot more deeply. So if you know a lot about one, get ready to learn about the other. Rhonnie's an absolute expert at both. And I hope you all are enjoying this full moon. It's really a gorgeous lunation for us with Venus now in Taurus. So it just allows us to really focus on slowing down, enjoying ourselves, actually giving ourselves little pleasures like this amazing workshop, which is just such joy for all of us who are obsessed with this kind of stuff. And it really is an amazing way to really bring in the divine feminine, which I think is so special when it comes to tarot and astrology and the history there and the people who, oh, nice Venus, and the people who really are the practitioners here, and whatever that means for you. So really excited. It is now 3:33, if anyone's into angel numbers, at least in LA. I know it's 6:33 on the East Coast, but I guess we can pass it off to Rhonnie to get us started. And we don't have to wait any longer because I know we're all so excited. Thank you so much, Rhonnie.
Hey, I'm gonna take my glasses off. This is a glare. Alrighty, how you guys doing? I hope you're having a happy full moon. It's been a very long time since I taught a class. And the last time I taught a class, I was teaching children how to make beats. So yeah, so this is definitely very different for me. But I'm happy to be here to discuss, the bridge between tarot and astrology. And so I just want to give a little bit of a background about myself. So as you know, my name is Rhonnie. I've actually have a huge background in music, and I still have that. But the reason why I decided to practice tarot and astrology as a profession was actually over the pandemic, the passing of my aunt. I would say I went through a little bit of a spiritual initiation, and I was gifted a tarot deck by one of my friends, and that just had me dive a little bit more into tarot. And then astrology, I actually grew up learning astrology. My mom will always send me horoscopes and things like that, so that's ever since I was a little kid. I've always studied astrology and was very interested in the stars, right? And so another segue into the reason why I'm here is because I had the idea to create a tarot deck. And I wanted to release this tarot deck with an album that I wanted to release. And I reached out to a friend who's a graphic designer, and I told her about this deck, and she was very interested in helping me create this deck. And help me combine my photography skills and her graphic design skills. And that led me to create Jupiter Juice podcast with her, which I am co-host of. So I will share more about that later. But that's how I kind of just started practicing astrology. Is kind of like a spiritual thing that happened. And here we are. And the reason why that I personally love tarot and astrology, because at a time where I was in my darkest moments, it really helped guide me through what I was going through, just really like studying the stars and studying the journey of the Fool, because of course that's what the tarot is about. And then if you think about it in astrology, if you think about the house system, that's technically the, you know, the journey of the Fool as well, or the journey of the self. And so one thing I realized, oh, hello.
Hello, sorry for being late.
But one thing I noticed while studying astrology and tarot together is that everything mirrors the stars. Everything. You know, we are made of stardust, you know, and everything is a mirror of the other. And that's something that I noticed just studying tarot and astrology together. And when I started to study it even more, like actual text and, you know, looking online and pulling YouTube videos, I realized like, wow, it's 100% a mirror of, you know, of the other. And so that's why I found interest, and that's why, you know, they work together. And so before I get started, I do want to ask a question. So if you read astrology already or tarot, what card do you most feel connected to? So you could drop that in the chat, because at the end, I'm going to have an activity for you guys to do to see how that lines up. So like if you, I see the Empress, the Star. Oh, wow. Let's see. I love the Magician. Okay, okay. I'm surprised to see the Hermit. That's cool. But let's see. Hermit, the Fool, love the Fool, Strength, Empress. Those are like the most common ones. So I want you to keep that in mind towards the end, because the exercise I'm going to have you do it, you're going to be able to see like if the card that you resonate with is actually like your card. So I'll help you find your card at the end of this exercise. But all in all, like at the end of, you know, this workshop, I want you guys to just feel more comfortable, you know, with both tarot and astrology as practices. And also just for you to go home or, you know, take this information with you so that you can just, you know, you find more layers to the readings that either you give to, you know, clients or that you, you know, receive from practitioners. So that is the goal. So I hope you guys enjoy this presentation. So we're going to go to the first slide. Let me see how to navigate this. 1 second. All righty. There we go. Alrighty, so we have why combine tarot and astrology and divination. So when we have astrology reveals basically long-term patterns, cycles, energetic themes. So it's, if I were to compare the two, I would say it's more tangible. Like you can see it, you can see things unfold, you know, especially with the stars, like the connecting with like the planets and things like that. That's something we can see. It's visual. That's something that we can easily connect to. And then when we have tarot reveals, you know, I guess the spirit of it all. You know, it details the now more so. It gives you more detail and how you know, you can respond to the energy that's, you know, comes from the stars. And so they both offer, you know, with astrology, structure and intuition. And so I believe that's really important when, you know, diving into like questions that you may have, because, you know, a lot of times, like, yeah, we could look at, oh, Saturn is transiting my 6th house. Okay, that deals with my routine. But a lot of times, like if you pull cards when you know, look to that transit, you may find a card that, you know, relates, that helps give like the nuance to the particular journey that you're dealing with, or like what you may need to focus on when it comes to this particular transit. So each practice gives the other more clarity. So they go hand in hand. All righty. And so we're going to break down astrology in the tarot, but we're going to break it up into 2 sections, really 3, but two for, as like the scope. So we have the major arcana. So the major arcana, really, I wouldn't say it stands alone, but it kind of stands alone. It's like the big energy of the tarot. It's more spiritual, it's more profound. It's something that, people automatically recognize, even those who don't study astrology. If someone has an idea of astrology, they mainly only know the major arcana. And so the major arcana consists of 22 cards. 12 of those cards represent zodiac signs, and 10 of those cards represent the planetary archetypes. So just with that alone, that tells me that, of course, this comes from the stars, because you have 22 cards and 12 and 10 automatically add up to represent the zodiac signs and the planetary archetypes. I think that's very cool, basically the major arcana, each card represents the full embodiment of either the sign or planet that it represents. And the 12 zodiac signs and the 10 planetary archetypes, like the main ones, they represent the full journey through the cards and the wheel. And so here, before I dive into the major arcana, I do want to let you guys know, I did mention earlier that I'm a part of a podcast called Jupiter Juice, and I'm working on a tarot deck. So that tarot deck is very real. It's not out yet, but we are working on it. And you will see that we have some of the cards that we've already created here, and I am the High Priestess. You see that? I love it. Isn't it cute? But yeah, so here we're going to discuss the planetary archetypes when it comes to the major arcana. So the first card we have is the Fool, and that represents the planet Uranus. Sometimes people count it, sometimes people don't. It just depends on who the practitioner is. And so, but I count it because, I consider Uranus a very important planet in a person's chart. And so Uranus deals with, sudden changes that lead to new beginnings, something that you don't expect. And that fully embodies the Fool energy. The Fool, you have to take not you have to, but you take a leap of faith. You kind of bet on yourself. You trust the journey that lies ahead. And with Uranus asks you to surrender and trust the journey that lies ahead. And so that is the Fool. Then we have Mercury, and this represents the Magician. So the Magician and Mercury, I would best describe it as like the gift of gab. You're able to, blend, all these energies. You're able to, make something shake. And when I think about Mercury, it's kind of like, how to communicate, how to move, just the full embodiment of, the planet Mercury. And so then we have the High Priestess and the Moon. So the High Priestess deals with your intuitions. It deals with your psychic abilities. It deals with the hidden. And when I see when I deal with moon energy, a lot of times it does, sometimes depending on who's reading, but it can get like a little bit of a negative connotation because you can't really see what's going on. Like when we think about the moon energy, because it's hard to trust. But the High Priestess asks you to trust, your intuition, to trust your psychic abilities. And that's what that represents. And then we have the Empress. The Empress embodies, complete creation, joy, just the full embodiment of joy and creation and just values and things like that. So Venus represents the Empress, and then we have Jupiter. Jupiter, and how I like to explain Jupiter, I've heard some traditional astrologers say Jupiter can be considered a benefic and malefic planet. And honestly, that's how I view the wheel as a card, because the energy of Jupiter, it expands whatever it touches. And so like it can, if it's interacting with, a malefic planet, it can expand that. I think, okay, cool. Thank you. So it can expand, the energy of that. And so when I think about the wheel, it's fate, right? So it's like the wheel's turning in, whatever direction. It's karmic. And so that's why it embodies the energy of Jupiter. Now we get to Mars. Mars represents the tower. Mars can be combative. It's fast moving. It can, especially if you're impulsive with it, it can really burn bridges. And so I think that perfectly represents the tower. This card doesn't really show it, but in the Rider-Waite tarot deck, the tower is basically a building burning. And so the energy of Mars, it's the initiator, yes, and it has a lot of positive qualities, but I would say the shadow side of Mars definitely gives tower energy. But I actually love the tower card because when things fall and when things burn, in that debris, new things can form and new things can bloom. And a lot of times we need things to burn down and we need things to shatter in order to, begin anew and to grow. And so that kind of leads me into the sun. Of course, the sun represents the sun, that's pretty self-explanatory right there. It illuminates, it's joy, it's the yes card. And so like when you get that, it's like, yes, it gives you, I use the sun card as like one of like my yes or no's cards. Of course, that's the yes. And then the tower card actually is my no card. So I think that's pretty interesting seeing those two together like that. And then we have the Hanged Man, which, embodies the planet of Neptune. And Neptune, it's like Piscean energy. So it's like, it's that intuitive, it's that hidden, energy. And the Hanged Man is like it's surrender. You have to surrender because you can't fully see the full picture. You just got to trust whatever lies on the other side. And that's, Neptunian energy right there. And then, we have Pluto, represented by the Judgment card. And so that is right before the world, because like the segue between Judgment and the world is like that final bridge, when it comes to change. Pluto is like full transformation, and Judgment is just like embodying that transformation. If you look at this card, there's like a spirit side or a shadow side of her. She's like going up into the heavens. It's like she's trusting that transformation. And, as you do that, you end up at the world, which is the end. And we have that represented by the planet Saturn. And Saturn is, a lot of people, think of Saturn as like, it is a malefic. But I don't look at Saturn as a negative planet. I think it's something, it builds foundations. It's tangible results. And so the world is like, you're at the end of that journey. And it's like what you have, the things that you have at the end, after you've gone through each cycle and, gone through many changes and transmutations and things like that. So that is the planetary archetypes of the Minor Arcana. And then we're going to do a light breakdown of the Zodiac archetypes. And so we have Aries with the Emperor. And so Aries is the initiator. Of course, it embodies Mars energy. And so the Emperor is the initiator. He's the leader. And then we have Strength, is represented by Leo. You think Leo the lion, things like that. But yes, it embodies the heart. It embodies pride, creativity, joy, like what you truly like believe in, what you want to show to the world, how you want to shine. And then we have Temperance, that's represented by Sagittarius, the Hierophant, Taurus, Then we have Virgo, the Hermit. And I'm wondering, I saw a lot of people mention the Hermit in the chat. And I'm wondering if you guys have any Virgo placements in your, especially in your big three, because I thought that was rather interesting. But, and then we have Capricorn, which represents the devil. And I really want to touch on this card specifically. I don't know, it's coming over me. But when it comes to Capricorn and the devil, I know some people that I've spoken with before, you know, don't really see how it relates, but I kind of do, because like Capricorn, the shadow side of Capricorn, it can cause you to feel sometimes a little pessimistic or negative, or just like very, like really hard on yourself when it comes to, you know, whatever is affecting in your life. And so I can see it's kind of like, don't really go back and embrace those negative thoughts about yourself, because those are false, you know, it's just like false ideals, or things you shouldn't really, those habits and things you shouldn't fall back on, you know. So I think that's very interesting that Capricorn represents the devil. And then of course we have Gemini, that represents the lovers, and the lovers is a mirror. Geminis are a mirror. And so it's like the, you know, yin and yang, divine masculine, divine feminine energy. And then of course we have justice, represented by Libra, and then the star, represented by Aquarius, the chariot, represented by Cancer, death, represented by Scorpio. And of course, Scorpio is the hidden, it is death, it is transformation. And then we have the moon, represented by Pisces. I did find it interesting that the moon wasn't represented like by the moon, like the sun isn't like the sun is represented by the sun. But the moon represented by Pisces, and of course that's the hidden, the intuitive side of the moon, and like the empathetic side of the moon, and the more like divine feminine energy. And so that is the major arcana through astrology. Now, when we move on to the minor arcana, a lot of people don't pay attention to that when they think about combining, like tarot and astrology. And honestly, it's probably because it's like a lot of people don't talk about it, and it can be hard to understand because it's a lot of information. So I have here, and this also shows how astrology and tarot are mirrors of one another. Because technically what I'm showing you here, this is the Zodiac wheel. It's just replaced with you know, the minor arcana. And so this wheel helps you visualize the sequence. And then each card in the minor arcana represents a particular planet, sign, modality, and element. And so we're actually going to refer back to this slide in a moment. I'm going to break down basically the minor arcana. I'm going to break it down, of course, by planet, a little bit about the planet, because that is very complicated. I don't think we'll have time to get into that, but we'll definitely touch on the signs, the modality, and the element. But before I move on to that, does anyone have any questions, or, you know, about the major arcana and what we've gone over?
I have a quick question, Rhonnie. First of all, everyone in the chat is dying over how gorgeous the cards are, so I just wanted to call that out. So
oh my
beautiful.
goodness!
Oh my God, we love them. And then yeah, it's so sweet. I wanted to know, like, with the cards that are related to the 12 zodiac signs.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever look at the cards in a way where, like, I'm always really interested in the polarity between two signs? So like Virgo, Pisces, Aries, Libra. Do the cards like kind of mirror that kind of polarity ever? Or do you feel like they're less like dualistic like that?
I would say it could. I would say like with, let's say for example, Gemini. Well, actually, no. Let's do Aquarius and the star and the strength card, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's Aquarius and Leo. They're both like hopeful, prideful. You know, it's really heart led. I would say with those two cards, I would say they mirror each other in that. I will also say like the Lovers and maybe in the Wheel of Fortune. So both of them deal with duality in a sense, because the Wheel of Fortune is not just, oh, the wheel is turning in your favor, you know, because like the Lovers can represent, it's divine feminine, divine masculine, yin and yang, but it's also shadow and light. And I feel like the Wheel of Fortune represents that as well. You know, the shadow and the light version of how the tides can turn, you know, when it comes to karma. So I think it could relate in that way, if that makes sense. I hope I answered your question.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. Like each card kind of has, you know, they could have two kind of meanings or dualistic.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
For sure. But I do think that I honestly never looked at it that way. But I do think that for sure. Yeah. And that also shows you like it's still a mirror. Everything is a mirror, like I've been saying. And it's just so interesting how life is. And you know, do you know like you know when you have like a mirror and you turn it towards a mirror and you just see it keep going and going and going?
Yeah.
That's exactly how tarot is when it comes to astrology. Like I've done like when I was doing like further research, I kind of knew like, you know, the beginning stages of like how these two practices are interconnected. But when you keep diving deeper and deeper and deeper, it's like, oh my God, this never ends. Like it literally keeps going and going and going and going. So I definitely encourage you guys, like after this workshop, to like go on YouTube. You know, there's not really that many books. I know Michelle mentioned a book when we had like a chat before. And I don't know if she could put the title of that book in the comments, but that's like a book that you guys could probably look into to study like tarot and astrology together. But it's not that much research as far as like books about it, but there's a lot of video essays on YouTube about it for sure.
Thank you so much, Rhonnie. And then one other question on the Major Arcana specifically, and then we'll do the other kind of more general questions at the end. Okay. One person expressed that they were surprised to see that Pisces was associated with the moon and not Cancer. So just wondering if you could touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm surprised too, actually. It's I mean, so basically, like when it comes to the Piscean energy, I would just say it's probably touching more so on the intuitive and psychic side. Cancer is, you know, considered like the cardinal energy of the water. So it's like, it's more so, I would say beginning, initiating, like driving force of that possibly. So that's the way I can see how that probably relates to the Chariot. I will say, like in my research, that if I were to, and not to say like, you know, I'm all powerful person, I would change a few if it were me, because I really do feel like the moon relates more to Cancer, or even if we were to switch it up a little bit, the High Priestess. You know, I would say that, but I can also see how they got there, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah. Okay, super interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. And thank you guys. I'm so glad you like the cards. My co-host is actually in the chat. Her name is Liana. But yeah, she's my co-host. So if people could say hey to her, I love her so much. She's amazing. And let me see, there's one more question. Do you have any insight for individuals who go on long spells of time not feeling called to pull any cards? I would say trust that energy, because a lot of times if you're feeling called not to pull cards, that means you don't need to. A lot of times I found myself forcing forcing readings, like especially when it comes to myself. Now, when it comes to clients, like I go through like a different practice, like, I meditate, I, burn incense, I, kind of connect with myself and try to connect with the energy. But when it comes to like yourself, if you're pulling for yourself a lot, and I actually thought to mention this before we got on this call, sometimes we get trapped in this cycle of always trying to find the answer to something. And we don't need to. Sometimes that's where we need to let life happen. I always say that, let life happen. So if you're not feeling called to the cards, don't pull them. Just go outside, experience life. That's what I say. And that way you can like find inspiration in that aspect. And yes, the name of our podcast is Jupiter Juice. You can find us everywhere on streaming and YouTube. How long do you pull the cards? I mean, you kind of got to go with, it's an intuitive vibe, so yeah, it's kind of like how you feel, don't pull too many. If you feel like you want to stop. And a lot of times I hear in my head spirit tell me stop, and I stop and I move on. So all right, and so we are going to move on to the minor arcana, because the minor arcana is very layered. It's a lot. And so we're going to break it down so we could just make it a little bit easier to digest. So the minor arcana, we're going to talk about them as elements. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you guys know, especially if you're interested in astrology, you kind of know what each suit represents. And so the minor arcana as elements. So we have the wands, which are represented by fire energy. That's passion, that's drive. And then we have Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. And then we have the pentacles, that's earth energy. And so that's stability, that's practicality. I would even say values as well. And then we have swords energy, that's air, intellect, communication. And so that's Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. And then we have cups, that represents water, which is emotion and intuition. And so that's the basis of it. And so once you grasp that, I'm sure a lot of you guys know, but once you grasp like that energy, I feel like that's a good starting point into reading, the tarot, thinking about the energy of, astrology. I will say, like, even after this workshop, you're going to have to do a lot more, studying and deep dives and things like that. Like, because it's a lot to digest. But if you just start with this and recognize this and get to know this energy when pulling cards, or when interpreting readings, that you receive for yourself, I think this will definitely be a good guide and gateway to understanding your readings a bit better. Alrighty, and so we have the modalities in the minor arcana. So we think about the cards, we're only going to focus on the cards 2 through 10 for right now. And so these cards are divided up into groups of 3, and they are divided up amongst the modalities. So we have cardinal, and we have, that's starting energy. This is like the opening of the tarot deck, opening energy, very new energy. And those are cards 2, 3, and 4. Then we have fixed energy, 5, 6, and 7. So this is the middle of the suit. And so this is the bridge between the cardinal and immutable. It also can feel intense and very consolidated and compacted. And we definitely see that represented in like the 5 cards in all of the suits, to be quite honest. And then we have mutable energy. And so we have 8, 9, and 10. 10 represents the completion. So if we think about the fool's journey, right, through the major arcana, and we put it in, the minor arcana by the suits, 2 through 10 represents the fool's journey in that aspect as well. And so the mutable energy is like, these cards feel like change, release, and reorientation. And so basically 10 then leads you to, the next cycle. And so we're going to talk about how, and we're not going to deep dive into this. I don't know, is anyone in here familiar with decans? I would just like to see. So we have no. Okay. Okay. Okay, so it's a little bit of light energy. So we're definitely not going to deep dive into this. This is where it gets deep. Okay. So when we talk about decans and astrology and relating it to the minor arcana. So the minor arcana, like I said earlier, is represented by a sign, modality, element, and a planet. The decans are where you find the planet for the minor arcana cards. So I'm just going to lightly go over what decans are a little bit. And so decans basically are the astrological architecture for when we're speaking of the minor arcana. And so the decan of a zodiac sign basically equals the ruling planet of that particular card. So each zodiac sign contains 3 decans. So decans are divided up, basically deal with the degrees of each sign. And so each sign runs between degree 0 and degree 30. And so those degrees are divided basically by 10. So we divide the 30 by 10, you have 3 different decans. And it focuses on the minor arcana cards 2 through 10, and there's 36 decans. Each decan is ruled by a planet, like I mentioned earlier, and then there's like a little equation: 12 signs times 3 decans equal 36 cards that are represented by decans. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of an example. And so I'm not going to really dive too deep into this because it can be just a lot to digest at once. But for example, the 5 of Pentacles, we're going to use that as an example. The 5 of Pentacles, when you think about the 5 of Pentacles, it deals with the material. There's a lot of angst, anxiety. When that card comes up, you could probably, if it comes up for you in a reading, you probably just feel insecure about your finances, insecure about your home life, insecure about just your stability, all in all. And a lot of times, like in some cards that deals with the 5 of Pentacles, there's like a key or like a lock that's illuminated. And so it's like the energy it's there. It's for you, like the answer to your question or the way out of this particular situation is there. It's just you're not seeing it because you're so inside of your head, right? And so when we have the 5 of Pentacles, the 5 of Pentacles is represented by Mercury in Taurus. Reasons why. So we have Taurus. It represents material stability, values, the things that we want, the things that make us feel at home, right? And then we have Mercury. That's how you process, like your mental processing, and how you communicate, right? And so those 2 energies that come together, Mercury and Taurus, when they come together, it fully embodies the energy of the 5 in Pentacles, our minor arcana card. Before I move on or, go a little bit deeper, does anyone have any questions about what I explained? Are y'all good? Or do you understand? Do you get it a little bit? Because like there's a whole list, but I wasn't going to put like, the entire list on, on a slide, but it can be a little confusing. Now, I will give like some more examples. So like if we're thinking about the suit of wands, we have the 2 of wands that represents Mars and Aries. And that's the initiation of new projects and bold decisions and assertiveness. So when you think about like Mars and Aries, it fully embodies that. And the 2 of wands deals with bold decisions when you pull that card. And then another example of, in the Wands energy, we have the Three of Wands. That's represented by the Sun in Aries. So that's expansion, that's foresight, that's achieving goals early. And then a lot of times, like, for example, when you look at like the Three of Wands, I can give you a link right here, actually. 1 second. Hold on one moment. I'm gonna put it in the chat because I think this will be cool to kind of have like as. Oh, I'm glad you're learning, yay! Because I was nervous, y'all. But but this link is a good link. It will get you there for sure. But you're welcome. You're welcome, y'all. I think definitely keep that in your back pocket. But yeah, the Three of Wands is the Sun in Aries, so that's expansion and foresight. And a lot of times when you look at depending on what deck you have, whatever, you look at the Three of Wands, a lot of times it's a person looking into the distance. They're looking towards thank you. You're looking towards the, like your goals that are about to come to fruition, so I think it's very interesting. Like I said earlier, I wish I could use a different word to describe it. How we have the, tarot and astrology come together so closely like that. And it makes me think like, these practices, came about thousands and thousands of years ago. And sometimes, and not to sound shady to mankind right now, but it makes me feel like, like, what are we doing? Like, I don't feel like we're using our brains as much. I feel like because back then, like, they probably didn't have much, like all this technology and things like that. They were able to dive in and truly study, the stars and the tarot, and for them to come up with this and, to have this download and for it to actually blend and, kind of communicate with each other. I just think it's so beautiful how it's come together. Everything is a mirror. Every single thing is a mirror. Let's go to the next slide. Any questions before I go to the next one? We good? Okay. Which brand or site? Well, hopefully our brand. We release our tarot deck, but until then, my favorite deck right now, I actually showed her deck. I'm actually going to go back to it, but her name is Chris Ann. If you look at, and it's actually in my bio on the Lora website, like some of the decks that I recommend, but that, like, for the example, every card that's not the card that Lee and I created, that's from her tarot deck, the Light Seers Tarot. I would say start with that if you want something a little bit more creative. Of course, like, you can start with like the more traditional decks like Rider Waite, but I would say I learned a lot from her, for sure, from her decks. I would say reversal cards, you can, yeah, if reversal cards are your thing, and you're welcome. If reversal cards are your thing, you can definitely interpret them that way. You could just interpret the shadow side of that particular planet or sign, because every planet and sign has, a yin and yang, a shadow side and light side energy. So you can interpret it that way. You can also look to see, like, what if there's like a retrograde happening, rather transiting or natally, that could be something that can help you dive deeper into, how you're connecting the two when you're doing your readings. But yeah, definitely, for sure. You're welcome. And I heard like the Modern Witch Tarot deck, a lot of people like that one. I don't have that one. But yeah, I know a lot of people that have that deck as well. So I do think that's a great recommendation. And so we're gonna move on. We're almost done with the major arcana. Then we're going to get into our activity. So we have the aces and court cards. As you might have noticed, I did not mention those cards at all, when discussing the major arcana and the minor arcana. And that's because they kind of mimic major and minor a little bit. And I would just say, just like energy wise. So when we have aces, they're the beginning, they're the initiator. So that's what it basically represents, the pure elemental energy of that particular suit. So we have wands, that's like pure wand energy, that is initiator energy, that's fire, that's a spark, right? So it's the beginning. And then we have the court cards. So the court cards are kind of like a condensed version of the fool's journey, but I would just say it's really just by element. More so than anything. And so the pages, they are more foundational. Now, that website that I sent you guys, I think on her website, it shows pages as, kind of similar to aces, representing the full embodiment, but it deals with modalities instead. I would relate it more so to the elements. So pages, they represent earth energy, they're foundational. They're basically new ideas and nurturing of new ideas. And then we have nice energy. And this represents air. So it's movement, right? And so like, for example, like the Knight of Pentacles is more like slow and intentional movement. We have like the Knight of Swords, that's more swift, sleuthy type of energy, if you can catch my drift. And then we have the Queens, that represents, empathy, intuition, water. And so even if you break it to the Kings, like even if, like these particular court cards represents like, initially a particular element, it can, it helps you read the actual card a little bit better, like the vibe of the actual card. So like, for Knight's energy, it can represent like air and air, or air and fire, air and water, air and earth, if that makes sense. On that website, you'll see that I put in here, you'll see how, those two can relate. And then we have King's energy. That is the full embodiment of the lessons that you've learned, and how you display the lessons that you learned. It's wisdom, it's lived experience. And that's also considered fire energy. It's like you learn all these lessons, now you can go. And then the cycle starts over. All righty, any questions about that slide? Let's see. All right. So I'm going to give you like reading examples. We're only going to do 2 cards because it can become a lot quickly. So for example, let's say you pull the Moon and you pull the 3 of Pentacles, right? So the Moon, like we discussed earlier, represents Pisces energy. And then the 3 of Pentacles, if you refer to that link I sent you, if you want to, you'll see that the 3 of Pentacles, it is earth energy. So it's always going to be in an earth sign. But this particular card represents Mars and Capricorn. So basically, Pisces represents your intuition, Capricorn is structure. And so it's your intuition meeting structure. And so unclear vision requiring grounded collaboration. So it's like you receiving support in, whatever you're not sure about, I would say. So like if you pulled that, it's like, because the Moon can also represent fear as well, maybe fear of collaboration, fear of, your ideas not making sense. But, that 3 of Pentacles show that you need that support, or you should rely on that support or seek support, or you already have support when it comes to, whatever situation this particular reading would represent. And then the next example we have is the Tower. And that represents some Mars energy. And we also have the Five of Pentacles. And I broke down the Five of Pentacles a little bit earlier. And that represents Mercury in Taurus. And so Mars represents disruption. And then the Mercury in Taurus, Five of Pentacles, represents insecurity, loss, and instability. It's so how this could come up in a reading is like, maybe the way that it could show like the way that you've been thinking needs to change about your, particular situation, finances, security, living situation, in order for, things to actually move for you. Because also you have to think like it's earth energy. So, it could kind of feel stuck. And it's also fixed energy, when we think about like the modalities. And so you kind of feel stuck in that situation. But Mars moves things, the Tower moves things, it shifts things. So it's like you need to burn down that whole ideology in order for you to actually move on to the next step, to get out of this fixed energy and to get in more of a, in flow with life. And so like I always say, like if the Tower comes up, that's necessary, and you're gonna have to just let the building fall, let everything burn. I love the Tower card. I'm obsessed. Any questions about this particular slide before we move on? All right, let's see. All right, so we're going to get into our activity for the night. And then, of course, we can answer some more questions. And I'm glad to help. Yay. So I want you to find your card. So I want to see what you guys get. So I want you to add up your birthday like you do in numerology. So your month, your day, your year, you're going to reduce it between 1 and 22. And then so for example, this person is me. I was born May 30th, 1991. My number broke down to 10, but it could also break down to 1. So my 2 cards is the Wheel of Fortune and the Magician. Now, the interesting thing about this is that I'm a Gemini sun. And one of my cards is the Magician. The Magician represents Mercury. I'm also a Sagittarius rising. I got the Wheel of Fortune as my other card, and that's ruled by Jupiter. So if you have 9, that means your card is the Hermit. 12, Judgment. So I can, I wish I had that list up there, but just think about the cards. And so basically the number that you get matches with the card, that's in the Major Arcana. And so I want you guys to let me know. See, wow, see, everything is a mirror. I'm telling you, oh my God, 9 and I'm a Virgo. And I want to know, like, if some of you who answered earlier, does that card match? Does that card match basically the card that you resonated with when you put it in the chat? And could I get the link again? Which link?
Yeah, Rhonnie, would it help if I read out like what like 1 is and then 2, 3, 4 up to how many numbers? 10?
Yeah, sure, that's fine.
Or is it up to 22?
It's up to 22.
Okay. Yeah. Here.
I was like, that's a lot. Like I can hold on. Let me
here, I'll put the link back in the chat.
One second. I'm gonna throw it in the chat.
No, perfect. I put it in there, Rhonnie. So the link that I just put in there, scroll to the Major Arcana section, and then whatever number you got, that's your card, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, amazing.
Let me see. So I was like, wait, oh my God, I know it's missing something. That's me overthinking. But yes. But I think isn't it interesting how like this all aligns? It's freaky. It's really freaky. I believe it is the same as your birth tarot card, because a lot of this ties back to numerology as well, and you'll see why. Like, because like one, also another thing that I guess a nuance of it all, my life path number is 1. And like sometimes in numerology, especially when it breaks down to a 10, I am a 1-10 life path. That's like my numerology. So it matches up with my sun and my rising sign. And it also matches up in a numerological sense. I'm sorry. But yeah, like it matches up in that way. Let's see. So yeah, this is how you would break down your life path number as well. Just add the day, month, year. People add it different ways. But you should come out with the same number regardless. Yes, please tell everyone because the thing is, it's like if you look at your card, this could be your yes card. So let's say you pull cards for yourself and you have a question. That could be like that can be your yes card, because a lot of times, like, well, when I started studying astrology, I don't know who I was talking to. I think it was my friend, but she told me to choose a yes and a no card. My yes card is different from what I got, but like my yes card for me is the Empress, but I mean not the Empress, the High Priestess. And my no card is the Tower. I just resonate with those cards a lot, but I also love the Magician as well. That's another card that I resonated with. The Wheel of Fortune, now that I know that it represents Jupiter, yes, but definitely the Magician, the High Priestess, and what was the other card? The Tower. Those are definitely my cards. But if you're just starting out, those could be like the cards that maybe like Spirit is trying to speak to you, or like something is like a profound message, like if those come up in your readings. Oh, you have the Strength card and you have it tattooed? That's insane. Wow. What? Let's see. You're 110 and life path number 1 as well. Isn't this crazy? So 22, oh, that's something that I forgot to mention. 22 would go back to the Fool. Because the Fool is 0. And so 22 doesn't actually match up with a number, so that will go to the Fool. Okay, come on, Libra degree. What is this called when a certain card is our card? I would just say your it could, I don't know if it's your birth card. I can't give you that. I can't say that 100% with my full chest, but I just say it's I call it your yes card, or it's just your card that matches up with your numerology. No, you're not misreading the website that you have. Let me double check the 5th card, because I know some cards are switched. I forgot. I feel like the Strength card and the Justice card are switched sometimes. The Hierophant is 5. What was the question? Let me see. Oh, you have to look at the is it Roman numerals? Yeah, on the website is Roman numerals. So like that V, that represents 5. Like the 3 dashes, that's 3. The IV, that's 4. So it's the you have to look at the number, the Roman numerals and the parentheses. Yeah, I'm not too sure. Let me see. I got 11, and so does this mean? So it can be two, like for example, like I had 10, but 11 is a master number in numerology. So if you want to just stick with, um, 11, you can, but you can also add it up to 2, like whatever resonates with you. And I would just say all of this is a lot of information. So you really have to trust your intuition. Like, what if you're not called to something, you're not called to something. Like if you got a particular card and it doesn't resonate with you, like I said earlier, like I absolutely love the Tower card, and I love the High Priestess. Like I never gravitate towards those cards, but if not, okay, cool. Alrighty, so that's really my lesson on, and the website I sent you, definitely study that, and also look up, just type in tarot and astrology on YouTube. You will find a whole bunch of stuff. Okay. And so and that will just help you, and just take it slow. Like you're not going to learn it overnight, you know and that's perfectly fine, you know but take your time. It's really, and have fun with it. Have fun with the learning about everything, and seeing how everything is a mirror, and seeing how things connect, and seeing what resonates. Because hey, at the end of the day, you may not want to incorporate astrology and tarot in the same, as like tools of divination, like in the same, reading or whatever. And that's perfectly fine. But to have knowledge of it, I think it's just a great tool to have. And I think it just makes you well studied. And it also, just makes you knowledgeable, makes you wise and stuff, and you can pass this information on to other people, because right now there is a spiritual awakening. I feel like a lot of people are catching on to astrology and learning it, and I just think it's really important. And yeah, so I really do hope you guys enjoyed this. If you would like to book a reading with me, my QR code is there under my picture with my blue hair. And if you would like to tune into Jupiter Juice podcast, we have our QR code here, and you could tap in there. And we release our podcast every single Thursday, not today because I was preparing for this and I need a little bit of a break. But you can definitely tune into Jupiter Juice podcast. Follow us on TikTok. If you do hit that QR code, you'll find all of our social media. We will be documenting our journey creating our tarot deck. It's photography based, as you've seen. And like I said earlier, Lee designs the cards, and I'm the author of the deck. So I'm very excited to, release that to the world. And I just really appreciate Lora inviting me to speak to you guys. It's really helping me grow as a spiritual practitioner. And it's helping me trust myself and my voice. That's something that I've definitely struggled with. And I think that's probably why I, resonated with Mercury and Taurus. My Mercury is in Taurus, like the 5 of Pentacles. So yeah, it's really helping me just be more confident in my voice and, just what I know. So I really appreciate you guys, truly. And just follow along, man. Follow along. Any more questions? Or I don't know how to end this thing. But yeah.
Rhonnie, oh my God, this was so helpful, so amazing. I just learned so much, and I literally am addicted to finding everyone's birth card now. I'm like,
Yeah.
all my
Crazy.
birthdays, I'm like adding everything up, and it's so fun.
Yeah.
I know we all got so much out of this. This was like, seriously, I'm like totally expanded now. I'm like gonna do so much research. It's really exciting.
It's crazy. It's crazy. It's
crazy.
really, it's like, what?
Yeah. It's so cool. Everyone book with Rhonnie. She's obviously incredible, so well studied, and get a tarot reading from her, birth chart reading. And you can guarantee that you're going to get a little bit of everything, because Rhonnie knows a little bit about everything and a lot about a lot of things too.
Yes.
Thank you much, Rhonnie. This was such a pleasure. Happy full moon, everyone.